Hi there, and welcome to the Homestead Education Podcast. Do you have a homestead, farm, or just dream of a rural life? This is a show to help you and your kids grow your own food and grow as a person. I'm your host, Kody Hanner. I'm a homesteader, homeschool mom of six, and small town enthusiast. I was raised by an old school rancher and blessed by the grace of God to have been exposed to so much of what rural life has to offer. Join me every week to talk about homesteading, homeschooling, and growth with a homestead education. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Homestead Education Podcast. Today, I have another wonderful educator on by the name of Kody Olthoff from Chop Local. Did I say it wrong again?
No, you did okay. You did okay.
Okay. My attention span lasts like all of 30 seconds. She's from Chop Local and Chop Local University, and so I just want to thank you for coming on today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So, Katie, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So, you mentioned educator in there. Backing up, I grew up in rural Iowa, um, went to college to be an elementary teacher, met the love of my life there, and that's how we started out was he was in agriculture, so I married into a farm family and I was a teacher. So my students could not say my last name very well either, so they just
Oh,
called me Mrs. O. And I still like refer to myself as Mrs. O sometimes, so we can
oh,
just do
fun.
that. But yeah, I taught for about 5 years, had my first two kids during that time, and then stayed home for a few years. And really started during that time to get more into, like I said, I married into a farm family. So I started to get more immersed in that life, especially when I was home every
Very much a
day.
baptism by fire.
Oh yeah, totally, totally, completely. And I could go on, I mean, I could probably tell you an hour's worth of those stories, but you
I
probably
feel you.
heard
See,
similar
my husband
versions.
wasn't a farmer and I was, so he's gotten the
Oh,
baptism by fire.
yeah, the opposite. Yeah, so I stayed home with the boys when they were little, but I started blogging about my farm at that time. That was when Pioneer Woman was just kind of coming on the scene, and I was like, I
Yeah,
can do that.
right?
And then that led actually when I went back to work full time, I got a job in ag communications. So kind of it
Nice.
just obviously not trained for that, didn't go to college for that, but started working in
Well,
agriculture.
if you can talk to children, you can talk to anyone. So,
Yeah, right. And what's funny is one of my jobs was editing the Iowa Cattlemen's Association
mm,
magazine and doing communications. And I always said that like doing communications is so similar to teaching because you're looking
mhm.
at how do you take this concept and how do you get people to understand it, right? And that's
Yeah,
exactly what I was trying to do, especially in the magazine. Um,
that's kind of always been like a real skill of mine. Like when I worked in the
yeah,
food plants, I used to take this like really advanced, lab vernacular and stuff, and then write it for an eighth grade level, which is what you write like food safety documents for. And so that's
right.
really been a gift of mine that I've
Yeah.
enjoyed.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important skill, and like you said, it translates into the education that you do with adults, but also the education that you're doing with your kids as well.
Hmm.
So then, 5 years ago, another farmer that I knew came up with this idea for chop local, chop like pork chop,
Hmm.
right? So chop local. He came up with the name. I always tell him that if he hadn't had such a clever name, I probably would not have been nearly as interested. But
I love it.
when I heard about
But,
it,
but
I
there's
was
pigs
like,
in Iowa, so you got to roll with
oh
it.
gosh,
I lived in
we've
Iowa
got
for 2 years.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of pigs in Iowa. There's actually a lot of cattle in Iowa too. People don't think
Hmm.
about that. And anecdotally, I would say there's a lot of, a lot of these farms that are larger commercial farms will also have something like a few sheep or some goats or, something like that to give their kids a little bit different experience
Hmm.
in Iowa. So there is probably more diversity than people may think here in
Yeah.
Iowa. Um, so he came up with the idea for Chop Local, it's kind of like an online farmers market specifically for farmers who are selling meat direct to consumer. I found out about it, fell in love with the idea, and joined actually 5 years ago this week is when I
Oh,
left my
wow.
full-time job and joined Chop Local. So it's kind of a fun anniversary week.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's
And then it
exciting to
didn't,
see these kind of like grassroots movements within like food and agriculture that are like started and are still booming. Like
yeah.
it's
Yeah. And we definitely started it because we knew, like, we had literally friends and neighbors who couldn't get their livestock into the processors during COVID, that type
oh
of thing.
yeah.
We don't have a tech background. We're not like the people that come out of California that are building software, like
No.
we know farmers. That's kind of our thing.
I even get it. My website guy is my husband's a disabled vet. He's a disabled vet, and like he just does my coding and stuff on the
Mhm.
side. And it's like I'm not getting a techie person in there either. I have like another redneck.
Right, right. And the thing is, a lot of people, like if you're working on the farm full time, the technology seems, I think, intimidating sometimes. But there are so many tools out there that make it so much easier. And so it didn't take very long after, starting Chop Local and starting to work with the farmers that I just kind of naturally started going back towards the education piece where I was like, okay, I can help these farmers one on one, or can I create a way that we can get information out to more people? And so we created Chop Local University. We have blog posts with educational resources. We have, gosh, over a dozen webinars that are on our YouTube channel. We do have a podcast also. It's called Meet Success.
I
So you
saw
can
that
check that
recently.
out.
I was like, how
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. And we have a few little courses and like that, this has been probably one of the most enjoyable parts of Chop Local for me is being able to do this education, talk to the producers, help them with what they need in order to make selling online work for them and make it more efficient, help them understand what they need to do. So,
Definitely. And I've actually taken one of your courses, the one on shipping meat without dry ice.
yeah, shipping frozen meat is our most popular. I got to give credit to Jared, who he's my business partner. You would have seen him in the course.
Mhm.
He approached this from like a very scientific research based, like he tested different materials and how he was gonna, how long things would stay frozen. And um, it's been really valuable because dry ice is a barrier in rural areas,
It
it's,
is. We have one person that sells dry ice in our whole county, and you can only get like
yeah.
3 pounds at a time.
Yeah, and even during the pandemic, like we used to have grocery stores that would sell it and they quit offering it because they just were cutting down on what they were doing during
Hmm.
the pandemic. And so we knew from the start we wanted to figure out a way for rural producers who weren't near a city to be able to do this without dry ice.
Yeah, that's amazing because I mean, we've done some of our own like testing as well, but it was so nice taking your course first and being able to like, okay, these things don't work. Let's throw them out and then go
Yeah,
with the materials we have available locally and see what works for us. And
yeah.
so we've been running tests for the last like 6 weeks probably, trying to like lock it in really good. But you mentioned right at the beginning that you wanted to help direct to consumer meat sales.
Hmm.
So can we like talk a little bit about what that is? I've talked about it a little bit on my podcast before, but if someone's popping in just to listen to you,
Oh,
let's
yeah.
discuss it.
Definitely. So when I say direct to consumer meat sales, what I'm talking about is that you are raising the livestock on your farm. You are having it processed. Some people process it on farm, but more likely you're using a small local processor. We call them lockers in
Yeah.
Iowa, but I've learned through the years that that is not a universal term across the country. But you're having
It's
it
not, but we call them
processed.
that here in Idaho too.
Do you? Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Yep. So you're getting them processed at the local locker. And I think, you know, even before the pandemic, like our family first was buying a quarter of beef from a local farmer and then started raising it ourselves. But the last few years, e-commerce has started to pick up. And especially during the pandemic, again, like people ordering groceries online during COVID-19 just skyrocketed the number of households
Yeah.
that are doing that. And the technology has come so far to make it easy for people. And so
And
we've
more
really
people are
seen,
realizing they want that like
yes,
homegrown meat, that
yeah,
they can choose meat like I want it raised this way.
yes,
And that without having to seek out that farmer, they can just hop online, find it, and get it shipped straight to their
right.
house.
Exactly. And we're seeing that people are liking to, they like, instead of buying an entire quarter and you're like, I don't know what to do with the short ribs, or I don't even, I mean, the first time I bought a quarter as someone who didn't grow up on a farm, I didn't know what to do with the cut sheet or what these cuts meant or how it
Right.
all worked. It was an intimidating process for
Yeah.
me.
I actually wrote a
But,
cookbook on like how to use all the parts of the
oh my
pork.
gosh.
So when you get your, quarter hog from us or something, you
Yeah.
know what to do with all the parts.
Right, because
Yeah.
it is intimidating for people who've never done it and who grew up cooking like maybe two cuts of pork.
Yeah.
I think before I bought a half a hog from a friend during the pandemic, like I was like, I've made egg roll in a bowl with ground pork. I've used sausage and pork chops and ham balls because that's an Iowa thing.
Okay.
But
Ooh,
like,
what's a ham ball? Because like we don't eat enough ham for what we bring in.
oh my gosh. Okay, we have to talk about ham balls, but
Okay.
did I answer the previous question first?
I don't know.
I
It was
don't
just
know
like
either.
what's direct to consumer, and I think that
Okay,
it
what's
just
direct to
brings us to a
consumer?
whole. We're just discussing all the different aspects of direct to
Right.
consumer.
So direct to consumer, you've got your quarters, halves, and wholes. We sometimes that's called custom exempt
Hmm.
because you can use a locker that is has a different level of inspection, but you're selling part of the live animal. And then we've also got the retail cuts, which is kind of what we specialize in, and we've seen more increase in. Now, ham balls, let me tell you about them because this is pork is interesting to sell online. A lot of people don't know what to do with pork. The things that we as farm families or rural families, like having a pork roast on Sundays and a ham, like those things were classic to me, but they just
Yeah.
don't sell very well online for some
Mm-mm.
reason. Cody, you're saying, yeah, you agree with that, right?
I
Like,
do, yeah. I haven't quite got to the online part, like where our sites up and stuff, but I
yeah,
sell a lot locally, and people are, unless they're kind of like the old school farmers and stuff, they're like, I would love to get a quarter hog, but I don't know what to do with
yeah,
half the stuff. And things like what I'm excited about, ooh, cottage bacon, those are great for sandwiches. And they're
right,
like, what is it?
right.
And so we definitely
Same.
have those.
It blows my mind that roasts aren't more popular because like I even in the summer have my crock pot going with a roast in it so that I don't
Hmm.
have to heat up my kitchen and I don't have to stand outside in the heat to grill. Like I
We
just love a
do
roast
tons of
now.
pulled pork in the crock pot.
Yes.
And then we
Yes.
can do sandwiches, we can do nachos. Like I can just leave it on low like throughout the day and the kids can just go in and like
Yeah.
get what they want.
I think pulled pork nachos are probably one of the newer things that we've started in our family that have been such a hit. Okay. So ham balls though, back
Handballs,
to
yes.
ham balls.
I'm like,
These
I
are
lived in Iowa for 2 years and nobody served me a handball.
I can't believe you didn't have a ham ball. Okay. So we go to the local grocery store normally and buy ham loaf, which I believe is ground ham and ground pork mixed together.
Okay.
Okay. So it's kind of a secret recipe that we get, but from the groceries, like they won't tell us exactly what's in it, but it's all pork. So ground ham and ground pork mixed together, probably about a half split of each of those. Okay. Then you're going to do your traditional meatball stuff. You're going to have some milk, usually some eggs, graham crackers. Okay. So
Mm,
your graham crackers and
they
your
give that
salty ham
sweetness.
is like the
Yeah.
sweet and savory. And then you're going to make that into a ball, obviously. You're going to bake that with a sauce that is usually tomato soup, little bit of vinegar, and brown sugar. That's kind of the classic. So I say that a ham ball for me is like dessert for supper. I really love it with sweet potatoes. Again, brown sugar, butter on mine.
Right?
But it is like an Iowa classic. I just actually just showed up in my Snapchat memories that a few years ago in October, October is pork month. I had a caption that said Porktoberfest, and I'd made like 4 batches of ham balls so that I could freeze them and just reheat them. So if you
That
can
sounds
grind
really
your
good,
ham,
like
yeah,
with even just like some barbecue sauce or something like that.
exactly. I mean, like
Yeah.
a sweet barbecue sauce or a little
Yeah.
bit tomato based, like Yeah, it is amazing. And I will send you Kody, my friend who's a food blogger here in Iowa. She has a recipe on her blog that
Okay,
is pretty classic. So, yeah.
I'm excited.
Yeah, I know this is not what we meant to get on the podcast to talk about, but it's
Doesn't
so
bother me
good.
any because
Your
you know what
kids will
though?
love it. They freeze
This is
easily.
something
It's
that
great.
we're constantly doing. We're trying to help people like
Yeah.
eat more whole foods,
Yeah.
eat direct from farmers, and then like you said, they get it and they don't always know what to do with it. And like
Hmm.
even like the hams, like a lot of people expect like a spiral ham, and that's not what you're getting when you're buying from a
Right.
farm. You're getting a whole ham that's still delicious. You just have to know what to do with it.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
And I mean, I was talking about this the other day, like with my kids. I have a teenagers, 17-year-old boy girl twins.
Okay.
And we actually discussed this before. They're both neurodivergent. One has really bad dyslexia, and
Mm.
ADHD. The other one is ADHD and autistic.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
like the other day, my daughter, she loves to cook. She actually wrote most of our recipes for our cookbook. And she wanted lamb gyros, but she wanted the ground lamb because it's easier to like work with
Hmm.
and the little
Yep.
boys eat it better and stuff. And like it didn't even like she didn't even skip a beat. She's like, I want ground lamb. Cade, will you go grab some lamb out of the freezer? And she went over there and she like hooked up the meat grinder to the
Grinder.
thing,
Hmm.
ground it out, and we had gyros for lunch. And I was like, it's just the way like kids that are eating whole foods just know it comes
Yeah.
more intuitive to them than
Yeah.
like maybe some of like us that were like, that's not how grandma did it.
Right.
So
And I will say, like we mentioned this before we came on, my kids are neurodivergent too. Two of them, at least one, has mild autism. All three of them have ADHD. The other one of them's going through testing for autism also. I have ADHD, maybe
oh
mild
yeah.
autism too. I'm not sure. You know,
My husband
um,
keeps sending me reels of those like AU ADHD people being like,
yeah,
I do this, this, and this. And he sends it to me and says, sounds familiar. And I'm like,
yeah.
do you really want me to send you reels of what sounds familiar about you?
That's
Because
what
we
I'm
can go
like.
there.
Honey, there may not be anything diagnosed in your family, but it's there too. Like this didn't all just come from me, let me tell you. So anyway, I will say that like, and maybe some of your listeners can relate to this because maybe they're not as far along in their homestead journey as you are, but like my kids are hard to feed. They have a hard time with different textures. They're not very willing to try new foods. It can be really hard to get them. It's hard to feed my family, I feel like, and to get them to eat a well-balanced diet. Um, and so having like anytime we have more resources and more ideas to pull from, I think like if they'll eat a meatball that's made out of beef, maybe they'll transition to eating a meatball that's made out of ham and pork, right?
Hmm.
Or um maybe going back to the pulled pork, like if they will eat the pulled pork sandwich, maybe they will try the nachos and then maybe eventually they'll put some beans on it too. Like if
Right.
that's been something that's been really a journey for our family to figure
My
out how
uh,
to handle those
my
hard things.
autistic one is like no sauce on anything. But
Yes.
that includes like
My
gravy or mayonnaise on a sandwich. And I'm like, how do
my
you eat that?
oldest my oldest was having trouble. He had a huge growth spurt and was like 5'11" and less than 100 pounds, okay? And the doctor was like, "What are you eating at home?" And he's like, "Well, my mom just cooks with sauces." And I was like, "I'm sorry, but like, yes, we do put sauce on foods. Like that's
Right.
generally most people like that, but
Right. I mean, even like the mayonnaise on a sandwich type thing. Like,
yeah.
how do you eat a dry sandwich? That's so
And
like,
And it's great. I mean, if you were trying to reduce your caloric intake, that would probably be great for you. But for him, he needed the extra fat from the
uh-huh.
mayonnaise or butter so anyway, that's part of the realities, I guess, of like raising kids like that and trying to feed your family is it's not always easy. So
Yeah. So having like you guys are farmers, right?
hmm
So having autistic kids and ADHD kids on
hmm
the farm, like, is
hmm
that challenging for you guys? Like,
I think we're really lucky in that like both of our families, and it's probably because, let's face it, this probably runs in the families and has always been this way, but like both of our families are very understanding, and are willing to kind of adjust the demands on our kids based on where they are at and what they need, right?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We always do the
I
like, I have the same expectations for you as like the other kids. I just understand that you need more help getting there.
Yeah, yeah. And I think I saw, like, I was just looking through your social media and you had something about like kids become capable when they are challenged or when they're pushed out of their comfort zone or
Hmm.
something about that,
Yep.
And it really made me think about one of my sons because most everything in life is outside of his comfort
Yeah.
zone right now. And
Hmm.
like, I think you have to recognize that, like, what's outside of a neurotypical kid's comfort zone is going to be completely different than maybe what's outside of your child's or my child's comfort
Hmm.
zone. And my family, my husband's family, they have been very, like I said, very understanding of that. I do see though, and I think I see this a lot in like farm wives Facebook groups and different things like that. Like I think that there are definitely people in rural communities who have this mindset of like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Everybody should be able to do it. We're going to punish you if you can't do it, or like, we're going to make you sit at the table and eat this, and you're going to eat it with the sauce just like everybody else does because that's the way that everybody does it. And
Hmm.
I think that as I've seen, like I've thought a lot about this, like some of my friends growing up and looking at them or kids that I grew up with, and I look at them and I'm like, they had to have been neurodivergent, probably never diagnosed and probably didn't get the
Hmm.
support that they need. And then they ended up with these huge anger issues, or they turned to alcohol or drugs or something like that to help self-medicate. And then their kids are now in school with my kids, and I just see that same cycle go on and on and on.
Hmm.
And that's where I think it's so important that, like, if we learn how to support our kids right now, and I mean, my goal is that they grow up to be productive members of society, right? And they can
Hmm.
be like the best version of themselves that they can be. And I don't think I'm going to be able to punish them into doing that or try to get
Right.
them to conform to do that. So,
No, I totally get that. Like our autistic son, he actually runs our dairy. He,
yeah.
at 12, he wanted to raise a dairy heifer. I couldn't
Hmm.
find one anywhere. I finally found a farm and they were like, "Oh, your son's an autistic showman. That's so cool. We'll sell you a
Yeah.
heifer." We now are on our third generation of this heifer's lines on our farm and he runs the whole dairy. But then like
I-
at the same time, I'll like catch him doing things like, I don't know. I was like, "Did you feed the cows this morning?" He's like, "No."
You're
Why?
like, well, but yeah, right? Yeah.
And he's like, "Well, we only had like that alfalfa that had some weeds in it, and I didn't know if we were supposed to use that." And I'm like,
Mhm.
"You drove over to the farmer's field and picked that hay out of the field yourself.
Yeah.
Like, yes, we're feeding all of it. It's cows. It doesn't matter if there's weeds in it, you know?
Right.
But
Right.
like
Yeah.
for him, it was like, there's no hay. Like,
Right.
you don't
And there
feed,
was, and it's so interesting because, when you say that like your son's running the dairy, a lot of people would think like, how can an autistic kid, you wouldn't expect them to be able to take that on. But like with one
Mhm.
of my sons, he's the kind of like he loves to be outdoors. I was looking at your survival stuff. Like he calls it a homeless camp back in the trees, like which is his like, little survivalist camp that he has back there, and he just loves to chill out there. He's always been super into animals, animal science, geology is the latest
Mhm.
thing, like,
Oh yeah.
those types of things. And I've always, like, even in kindergarten, when they were like, Isaac's struggling with his reading, he's struggling with knowing the letters and counting. And I'm like, can you quiz him on the dinosaurs? Like, can you, like, and then now that's transferred into more, slightly more practical special
Yeah.
interests for him, but like, he's really into, besides the animals, like, he's taking shop classes now because he's in high school.
Uh-huh.
And he's so into shop classes and his FFA and like that type of thing. And I'm like, I love it's different abilities, It's not that he's
Yeah.
doesn't have the ability to do something really amazing. It's just that it's different. And like to your son's point, well, the alfalfa wasn't exactly right, so I wasn't sure if I was supposed to use it. Like my kids do that too. Like
Hmm.
it's kind of black or white. Like it's
Yeah.
either right or it's wrong. And like
Hmm.
we have to teach them like, oh, okay, like this, we're gonna make do with this, right?
Right.
So,
Well, and
yeah.
like our 20-year-old has ODD. I don't know if you've ever dealt with that.
Mm-hmm.
It's oppositional
Mm-hmm.
defiance disorder. And we had an incident with him when he was probably about 12 or 13, where the kids would do rotating chores. So like one week you were in charge of the chickens, the next
Mm-hmm.
week you were in charge of like the goats or whatever. And because, we have 6 kids, so we would just rotate it.
Mm-hmm.
And he went out there every single day and I'd watch him because like the chicken coop was like I could see it out the kitchen window where I was like doing dishes and stuff in the mornings.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm doing my thing and I'm watching him like take the water thing, go into the barn, go back, go through all these motions. At the end of the week, it switched and somebody else went in and basically he hadn't fed or watered them the entire time and our rooster had died.
Oh no. And
And
you
I
were
was
like, but I
so
saw you,
frustrated with him.
right?
And I was like, why didn't you do it? He's like, I didn't feel like it. And but it's
Mm,
just like that defiance thing. And I was like, why? And I've seen this in him for years now, but he will go out of his way like to do the action of walking with the water over so that I would think he did it. But just so that he could not do what he was told to do.
that's really interesting.
And
There's one.
I'd gone into like a Facebook group for ODD kids and
Mhm.
was like, oh my gosh, what do I do with him? Like, I need him to understand that this is animal cruelty and all these things. And somebody got on and was like, you shouldn't make him do any of the animal chores. You're the one who decided to have animals, not him. And I'm like, that's not how real life works. Like,
Right. No, for
and
real. Um, One thing that I've been looking into for my kids recently is PDA. Have you heard of that? Pathological demand avoidance.
yes.
Some people also refer to it as a pervasive drive for autonomy. So, like, that they just really want to have control of things. And I think that there's some kids that the ODD might overlap with PDA or, um, and sometimes I wonder, like, that's made me think of your son, the story that you just told, that uh, persistent drive for autonomy or a demand avoidance is it's almost like that I'll do it because I want to, not because you told me to type
Yeah.
thing. And I know when I am really, really stressed, for whatever reason. Lately, it's been I have a grant application due next week and I'm traveling to give a presentation,
Ooh.
and so like it's all the things. Like if somebody puts even the littlest like extra thing on me, like, hey, can you go whatever, like that feels like a demand that is like crushing me. You know what I mean? And like maybe some weeks I could handle it, but maybe some weeks I can't.
Oof,
And
I feel you on that one.
yeah, right? Like
Hmm.
when I started learning about it, I was like, "Ooh, this one really resonates for me personally." And sometimes the demands are not just like somebody telling me to do something, but it's like it's almost like sensory, like somebody touching me, or like my kids touching me in particular, or
My
being
5-year-old,
noisy,
he
or
likes to be right, like in my
yeah,
face of whatever I'm doing, but he doesn't like quite want to touch me or snuggle. He
right?
just wants to be right there. And
Yeah,
I'm like, oh,
yeah.
like,
I will, yeah. I wanted to go back to what your chore thing for a second, because this has worked really well with my kids too. And I hope that this is helpful again for your listeners, is like rotating weekly. A lot of like chore charts, I feel like, or parent guidance is like almost like rotating daily. And that was like too fast for my
oh,
kids,
and they don't retain the information. And yeah,
and there's not enough routine for them. And so we actually rotate more slowly than weekly. But I think that that's a really good strategy to do it even monthly or build up to
we did that a
weekly.
lot when they were little. Now that I have a couple out of
Yeah.
the house and then two that are teenagers and two that are real little, we do more, we call them management
Yes.
positions. And so
Yes.
you get to like kind of move up the ranks
Yes.
like starting with chickens and like it's like Savannah, like my daughter, her management role is like the kitchen and preps. My older son, his management role is the dairy and feeding the pigs, seems how he's already up there in the mornings. And then the
Mm-hmm.
little ones, like they have to do like, dog food and
Mm-hmm.
they all have their like own management roles and you get promoted into like a new management role. So like my son, who even though he's still doing the dairy, he's starting to do ag mechanics with my husband and works on the neighbor's farm. And so then
Mm-hmm.
that's part of his role now too. But then the little boys will help pick up the slack with his like pig feeding, and
Mm-hmm. I love that. Yeah. I think that like especially for the neurodivergent kids, like they can get really good at that one thing then, and it becomes like a routine and a structure,
Hmm.
and it's easier on us as the parents to not be like, okay, for example, at my house, the dishes didn't get unloaded today. Who was in charge of the dishes? Oh, they had piano lessons and they had, like,
Hmm.
it's much easier for me to just be like, Adam's in charge of unloading the dishes right
Yeah.
now. So he's the one that I'm going to go yell at to get it done if it didn't get done, that type of thing. So
One thing we did do is whoever loaded the dishwasher the night before had to unload it the next day so
that's
that if
smart.
they didn't do a good job on it, it wasn't somebody else's job to clean up their mess.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That
That's
one
super
really.
smart. I'm probably too soft on this, but my Adam doesn't touching the dirty dishes is a problem for him. And
Uh,
so we should do it kind of as exposures that like, yes, he has to touch the dirty dishes sometimes, but we have an agreement. He unloads and daddy loads. Actually, daddy's in charge of loading dishes.
nice.
So yeah. That's the
So
other thing
our
we've tried to do on our farm is that, especially with me working full time, like it doesn't have to be the traditional gender roles or,
oh, yeah.
that's been
We
great.
definitely don't have those.
Yep. Yeah.
Too much to do. And even our older son who's moved out, his roommates love it because they have a new baby and he's in there like
Mhm.
whipping up nice dinners and or
Yes, nice.
like he even
Yeah.
takes a turn with the baby at night sometimes. Like, I don't mind, I'll make a bottle and set up with the baby. I'm like, that's a typical like large family homeschooled kid.
Yeah. Yeah. And oldest child too, probably.
He's
Like
not,
that's
but yeah.
he's not. Yeah. But that's very sweet and very helpful. And like you said, they really appreciate it. And
Hmm.
like, who knows how long it'll be until he gets married, or, that's a great skill for him to have.
It
So,
absolutely is. We have a friend who has a son who's more profoundly autistic than our son, but still very high functioning. Like he stars in
hmm
local plays and stuff like that.
mm, yeah.
But like the other day, he was mad at his laptop, and so he threw it and broke it.
Mm-hmm.
So guess what he got to do? He got to be a farmer with the Hanners for the day because they buy all their raw milk from us. And so they're like,
hmm
okay, the amount of money we have to spend on your
Right.
tablet that would have went to our raw milk, you're now going to
Right.
go work at their farm.
Yeah. That's great. And then he gets that
He
experience
he hates
too.
it, but he gets
So,
pushed out of his comfort zone and he's doing it with like friends, so that if
yeah.
like when he does have a meltdown or something, I am comfortable walking out there and being like,
Yeah.
"Hey, I know that this sucks, but sometimes we just have to do things we don't like. You did something
Right.
your parents don't like, so now you have to do
Right.
something you don't like."
Well, and it's a natural consequence. Like if he was an
Hmm.
adult and he threw his computer or tablet
He
and
would
it
have to buy a
broke,
new
he
one.
would have to figure out how to make money to buy a new one, which
Hmm.
may include doing some work that he doesn't want to do.
I'm
So
definitely big on constructing natural consequences because
exactly.
sometimes
Yeah.
they don't always just happen.
Right. Right.
Or like,
Yep.
with the tablet, he needs a tablet or a computer to do school, so his parents have to get him another one. You can't just say, "Oh, your natural consequence is that you don't have
That
one,"
you don't have one. Right. Yeah. No, I think that makes complete sense. So,
Yeah. So, circling back to meat because I mean, I
sure.
could talk about
Yeah.
this stuff all day long. But I think it's important because so many families out there are dealing with neurodivergent kids and the chores and all that
Yeah.
stuff. So it's absolutely. Um,
Yeah.
but so you talked about how you guys do have a online marketplace, but then you were talking about the difference between custom and retail.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the legalities of custom versus retail.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think that's one that
So,
really confuses people a lot.
yeah. So, there are a lot more processors across the country that can process for what's called custom exempt
Hmm.
because the regulations, it's still inspected, but it's not the same.
Usually like state inspected.
Yeah, usually
Yeah.
state inspected. There doesn't, because it's custom exempt means that you own the animal, you are having it processed for your own family's consumption. And now if I own the animal and I want my aunt and uncle to have part of it, I'm going to sell them a quarter of the live
Hmm.
animal and they are having it processed for their own consumption. And so
Right.
you don't have to have a
Well, like
USDA inspector on
our
site. It's a little
our
bit
local
different.
health inspector was telling me, she's like, "You guys sell custom meat all the time. You don't need a whole certification to sell chicken
Right.
because as long as that person is okay with you butchering it and they own it 30 seconds before you stick it in the cone, you're good."
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
was like,
And
that makes that a lot
poultry
easier.
laws, poultry laws across the country. I mean, there is a it's I'm looking for the right word and I can't think. Patchwork is the word. I was thinking quilting. There
Yeah.
is a patchwork of laws across the country. It is different in almost every state, but most
Hmm.
states allow you to process poultry on farm up to a certain number per year. And then the custom exempt piece is there. Some
Hmm.
states also have state inspection where you don't have to sell the animal in advance. You can get retail cuts cut and you can go to the farmer's market and you can sell a pork chop to this person
Hmm.
and a pork roast to this person or sausage to this person. Um,
Are you looking for new ways to advertise your business? I would like to invite you to advertise your business on the Homestead Education Podcast. Did you know that 60% of listeners will make a purchase after hearing an ad on a podcast? Why is this? Because personal connections and credibility from someone they truly trust will give you the best conversions. My podcast has been on the air for over 3 years now, and with an average of 5,000 downloads per episode and tons of long term listeners, you're bound to have somebody who will find that credibility in me. All ad spots will be promoted on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and my weekly newsletter. I have podcast sponsorship spots available that are affordable for all business sizes. And all advertising revenue will be used towards my educational outreach in the form of travel costs, curriculum development, supplies, and the administration of such activities. Go to my show notes now or visit thehomesteadeducation.com/podcast dash sponsorship. I hope to hear from you soon.
if it's state inspected, though, it cannot cross state lines, so you cannot ship it outside of your state. And so, if you want to sell retail cuts and you want to ship it, having a USDA processed facility or a USDA inspected processing facility is really what you want to look for in order to sell those retail cuts and to be able to ship them.
Which
Um,
unfortunately are becoming more few and far between for especially for small producers to get into.
Yes, it is. We work with producers all over the country, and I will say that there are some states that have heavily invested in meat processing, especially in the last 5 years.
Hmm.
So there's pockets of the country where USDA processing is not an issue. You can get scheduled. They may not offer all of the services that you want or that type of
Or they
thing.
charge a ton
Or
for
they
it.
charge a lot, or they don't have a long-standing reputation. Maybe they are newer. But it's not impossible in some areas of the state of the country to
Mhm.
do it. There are definitely pockets across the country, though, where it's really hard to get in. And I think in general, there's enough demand that it's almost everywhere. It's hard to get into the best processors,
Yeah. Well, like
that,
all of North Idaho only has one USDA plant. So
yeah,
everywhere in like the Panhandle only has one place to go. And because everyone else is so slammed, we can't get, even still 5 years after COVID, we can't get animals into
yeah,
Washington or Montana plants because they're like, nope, we're dealing with our own people. So we
yeah.
only have one plant to go to, and they won't do anything custom. Like, here's the list of cuts you can get, and this is how we do it. And so everybody in the Panhandle is selling the exact same product.
Oh, so you can't even like say, I want thicker chops on mine or anything. Maybe a
Some of
little
it you
bit.
can, but I mean, if you want thicker chops, it's an extra like 50 cents a pound for them to cut it. And it's like, goodness gracious, like that adds up really fast.
Right. And then your chops look more expensive to people too. But,
Hmm.
pork in Iowa, I would always go for a thicker chop personally, but
Right.
anyway, so there's those two ways of selling. You can do the custom exempt and you can do the retail cuts. One of the things, there's pros and cons to doing both ways. And I think custom exempt, the con is like you mentioned this when we were chatting earlier, Kody, like you can sell quarters or half hogs to your neighbors all day long, but you only have so many neighbors and they can only eat so much pork, right?
Yeah.
And like you said, they need education on how to use the different cuts and that type of thing. So
It's a lot of work.
and it's a lot of money, maybe not as
Mhm.
bad on hogs as it is for beef. But when you're selling a quarter of beef, even a quarter of beef is a lot of money up front for
Yeah,
some people. Like,
it
not,
is. A
Not
quarter
everybody can.
hog is for us is almost $400 though. So I mean that's
Right.
still,
So
yeah.
still, that's a big check for them to
Hmm.
write, especially if people are living paycheck to paycheck
Yeah.
or things are tight. So that is one of the barriers or one of the challenges of selling quarters, halves, and wholes or custom exempt. The benefit is, though, that you don't have to store the meat usually. A lot of times they pick it up directly from the processor. You don't have to worry about what to do with the hams and the roasts if they don't want them. That's for them to figure out what to do with.
Uh-huh.
If you are selling retail cuts, benefits are the customer has more flexibility. They can choose they can say, my family really likes pork chops. We're just going to buy a ton of pork chops from you and we're not going to touch anything else. And that is a big plus to them, especially as we talked about if they don't know how to cook those other cuts.
Hmm. Or I sell like variety packs where they get like
Yeah,
it's a lot cheaper. It's about an eighth of a hog.
yeah,
And I can, but you can't go down that far
right,
with the custom exempt, but with retail, I can go down that far. And then they get a
right,
sampling of everything, but they don't end up with 10 roasts. They have one roast and they can try it.
right.
And if they don't like it,
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a really smart way, like a hybrid way to go in
hmm
between there. Because the challenge with selling the retail cuts is definitely like carcass management and getting all of your cuts sold and not just like selling out of pork chops and still sitting on all of these other cuts that pork chops and
hmm
bacon are going to be the first things that
Yep.
go typically. And then you sit on these other products that you just can't move and you can't move. And then your family ends up having to eat them. And we see that with pork. We see that with beef, lamb. I mean, it happens
hmm
with all of them. There's
Yeah.
premium cuts and then there's cuts that aren't as common and are harder to use.
Yeah. And that's where that education piece comes in, where you're either having to like constantly send out emails or constantly showing up on social media, which is exhausting in itself.
Yeah, yeah. So, that's where one strategy is your pricing strategy. If you are selling out of bacon and pork chops all the time and you can't move your roast, like, we actually partner with, he would be a great guest on your podcast too. Matt LaRue from Cornell has developed the meat price calculator. And
I
you
have seen that.
Yeah, it's really kind of a neat tool. And you can go in there and you can start to play around and say, okay, I typically have this many pounds of pork chops. If I price them at this price, and I typically have this many pounds of roast and I price it at this price, what does my total value per carcass, my retail value per carcass end up at? And does it cover my costs and is it making sense? And so you can start to play around with beef producers. We talk a lot about like if you are sitting on hundreds of pounds of ground beef that you can't move, but your steaks are selling out the day that you tell people that they're in stock, you probably need to increase your steak prices and decrease your ground beef prices. And I know it's a lot easier for me to just say that than to actually,
Hmm.
but that's where the
It
price,
is
the
hard to
meat
do.
price
I have a
calculator.
couple of cuts that I think we actually like lose money on, but like that's
Mm,
in quotations,
yeah,
because then when it's bought as like a pack, people are
yeah,
able to buy bacon for $7 a pound, for example, but normally it would
yeah.
be 14, but they're also paying $7 a pound for just plain ground, like
Exactly. Exactly. So yeah, you can start to like balance that out. He also has a new tool out called the Bundle Builder. So,
mm,
and Matt and I have worked collaboratively on a few different projects, and he is willing to get one-on-one with people if they need help with that sort of thing too. So
that's
definitely,
wonderful. Yes.
yeah, yeah. The part that we really focus on is like the smart marketing techniques that you can use so that you don't have to show up on social constantly because I'm a little bit older now than when I started blogging, but I was there for the rise of Facebook. And you used to be able to have a Facebook page and like it actually reach people. And now
Right.
it feels like you get on social and it just to me feels so defeating because you don't feel like you're getting anything out of it. So
Yeah, or you post a reel or something that you're like, this is solid gold, it's educational, they're gonna love all my products. You send it out there and you get like 5 views on it. And then I turn
yeah,
around and like post a video of like my husband flipping me off or something dumb like
right?
that.
Something silly.
And
Hmm.
I think like we darn near went viral on it, but then like I got all these followers, but they don't convert because they're just for the
Right.
funniness?
Right. Yeah. Yep. No, completely. Social media, organic social is really, really hard, I think.
Yeah.
One of the best strategies that I've seen farmers use is go to a farmer's market to develop your customers. So, like a real live actual farmer's
Hmm.
market. Get them onto an email list, which I know again is easier said than done, but this is
You're
why
good.
we talk about the strategies. Actually we have a free webinar that's on our YouTube channel, YouTube, look up Chop Local Meat. That's all about email and getting people onto your email list. Um, get them onto your email list and then stay in touch with them that way. And that's what we've seen really work.
I always tell people to use farmers market as part of their marketing expenses and not their
Exactly.
operating expenses.
Yes. Oh,
Because they're
yes.
going there and you're meeting customers and then you're training them to shop from you.
Yes. And the big thing is like,
And even say
oh,
things like, if you're wanting to order for next week, I will bring that pack for you next week. And you have people showing up and meeting you to get those packs, and you're not having to seek out new customers all the time.
exactly.
Mm.
And those customers there, like they are looking for local foods. Like they raised their hand and said, I want to buy local foods. I want to support local farmers. I want to know how my food is raised. Like
Hmm.
it's really hard to just, like you said, you can go viral with a reel, but you don't know if those people care about local foods, if the
Right.
reel is something funny or clever or whatever. So you've got your audience right there. But we, like you said, we want to encourage them to start pre-ordering in advance. We want to encourage them to order year round after the
Hmm.
farmers market closes. And I really firmly believe that the best way to do that is email.
Yeah, I agree
On the
too.
flip side of that, farmers markets are not for everybody. Maybe you live in an area that doesn't have a good one. Maybe it's saturated. I think you really have to think about advertising and being smart about using Google and Meta ads to, again,
Mhm.
you want to find those people that are saying, I want local foods. Um, and there's there have been some advancements in Google and Facebook ads that make it a lot easier to do, but
Mhm.
it's probably not a DIY thing. You're probably going to have to find somebody
5
that can
years in
help you
business
with
and I still
that.
cannot figure out Google Ads.
Yeah,
And my
yeah, yeah.
Facebook Meta ads, I think I have those down, but I do them all on gut.
Oh, I haven't heard of that. Interesting. I'm going to
Well,
have to
like
look it
it's
up.
doing it myself. Like,
Oh, I thought you meant
yeah.
that it was like sorry, I thought you meant it was like platform that you use. I get it
No,
now.
no, it's just, and I've worked with coaches and stuff before. They're like, what is your ROI on your ads? And I was like, honestly, I couldn't even begin to tell you because I
Yeah.
do a lot of in-person events and they come up to me and go,
Hmm.
oh, I saw your ad. I've been wanting to see
Hmm.
this in person. That's with my curriculum, not
Right,
my meet. But, um, and so I could never tell you what my ROI is because
right.
it's completely, I'm getting it coming back to me in a lot of different ways.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things about the ads too. And even with Google ads, you don't always see the return right away.
Hmm.
I do think there's some value in saying, I want a minimum return. And if for people who've never used Google or Facebook Meta ads, both platforms tell you what your return is to some extent, you know. And so you can say, I want to see this minimum out of the platform. But I also know that there's probably residual. For example, you probably saw an ad for our shipping course, right? That's
Hmm.
probably why you signed up for it.
Hmm.
I never dreamed that then I would do a podcast interview and be able to reach your audience with my resources. And that's a value added piece that goes
And I
along
got
with
that
that
course
ad.
almost a year ago. So, I mean, it's
Yeah,
like, it all
yeah,
just kind of builds, and a lot of things are
yeah,
seasonal. For us homeschool curriculum, someone might see an ad today and not purchase from me until next fall.
exactly. Right.
They screenshot it. I'm going to look at that later. They find it a
Mhm.
year later and go, oh, we wanted to do this. And then they buy.
Okay, so thinking back to the meat, like this is the other thing that I coach people on is like, you can't just say, hey, we have meat and they're going to buy it immediately,
Hmm.
right? Like you do have to get in front of them several times
Yeah.
and start to convince them that this is the right decision for them, that this is the right meat for their family, that you have the options that they want. And it's hard for people to think through that whole process. I understand because when you start a business, you need the money, you've got expenses, you need the sales right now.
But
Um,
you need to educate and connect.
Yes. And
Yeah.
that was the other thing I was going to say is like, especially the first few years, like growth feels really slow.
Hmm.
But then you start to, after you have a couple of years under your belt, you start to benefit from those things that happened a year ago. You have repeat customers coming in, they're telling their friends and neighbors,
You're
and
filling
like,
that funnel.
yes, and it becomes like a flywheel that just keeps like going and going and going. And and it does get easier, but it's not like I think when COVID happened, a lot of people thought that selling meat direct to consumer was like a get rich quick scheme, and it is not. There
No,
is
it does
work
give
that
other
is
options,
involved.
but yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
because when you are struggling, like you've always been a conventional like beef raiser, and you're just like, oh, I'm going to take them to auction, and then they go to slaughter plant, and I don't see them after they're 6 months old or whatever.
right.
Whereas now they can't, the slaughter plants were down, the auction's not buying
Yeah,
anything, and they needed another way to sell, and
right,
online made sense.
right.
But yeah, it's not a get rich quick. It's a, like even for us, we were doing fine just selling to our friends and neighbors. But because I have a nationwide presence, I would go to events and they're like, we want to buy your pork.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this makes it where I can expand. I can, and so it's a different concept.
Hmm.
Can we talk a little to what it looks like buying meat from, like being the consumer
Oh,
and buying meat from an online program?
yeah. So, there's a couple, I get one thing I'm thinking about here is that a lot of farmers think that when they sell online, they need to sell by exact weight, the same way that they do at the farmer's market or grocery store, where they sell like, they say like this package of maybe bacon's a bad example, but this package of bacon is 1.07 pounds. And so I'm going to calculate that times my $14 a pound, and it's going to come out to 14.84. Did that can't be right.
Yeah,
Whatever. Okay. So they're just gonna, and then they're gonna say, well, this one's only 0.96 pounds, so I'm gonna calculate that and like, and there are some platforms that will allow you to do that. But
very
as a
challenging.
as a customer, okay, if let's say it's not bacon, let's say it's a ribeye steak, and I go to the grocery store and I go to my meat counter, or I go to the butcher shop and I go to the meat counter, and I'm like, I need some steak for my family. And the butcher holds this one up and he puts it on the scale and he's like, okay, here's how much it's going to be. I might go, whoa, way out of my budget. We're going to have smaller portions of steak. Give me a smaller one,
Hmm.
right? You can't have that back and forth online.
No,
And if you do this whole deposit and then you charge them for the full amount later, like some platforms do, that's super confusing to the customer.
yeah.
And because they don't know what their total is going to be, it makes them really apprehensive to actually make that purchase online. So, what we found is that customers really they want to know exactly what it's going to cost them at the end,
Hmm.
even if that means that this package of bacon is going to fluctuate from zero point 0.9 to 1.1 pounds. They still want to know it's $14. That's it. I'm done. I know exactly what you're
Right.
going to charge me.
I actually, I love numbers. So every time we go to the
Hmm.
butcher, as I'm labeling everything and putting it away, I'm getting weights and I
Yeah.
throw that all into a spreadsheet. And so I know what my average weight is over time. And
Yeah.
so if I see like, hey, summertime, our pigs are getting a little fatter, where in the wintertime they aren't, I'll adjust what that average is. And so
Hmm.
then when I say you're getting, two pork, you're getting four pork chops in a pack, the average weight is X, and then I charge you per pound on that average weight.
Right, exactly. The other thing that we do see some people do, especially if they have a wide, very like maybe they're a cattle producer that's still putting together a herd and they've got a bunch of different breeds involved, and so
Hmm.
some of their cattle are finishing out really big and some of them are finishing small, things like that. What they will do is they will say, you can choose a ribeye that's 16 to 20 ounces and it's going to be this price. And if
That's a good
it's
idea. Yeah.
12 to 16 ounces, it's going to be this price. We don't typically recommend that. I think roasts. Roasts are a big one that people do in like half pound increments often. Um, I don't want you to get like bacon. I wouldn't do it on bacon. I wouldn't do it on something that, a pound of ground pork that might vary by a few, tenths of a and or hundredths of a pound. But for higher value cuts, like a filet mignon, we definitely people do like 2 to 4 ounce increments because that way, as the consumer, I can choose what fits in my family's budget, even like I said, if that means that we're all getting smaller portion sizes. Um, and then as the farmer, you don't feel like you're losing out on money. So
That's
other things
good.
that I think consumers are really looking for, there's a lot of questions that they might ask you face to face at the farmer's market that people don't think to put in their online store, but it's like, how thick is it cut? Is it bone in? How many per package? How can I cook this? Maybe they see that you've got pork roasts online and they're marked down and they're like, ooh, that fits in my budget, but I don't know what to do with it, so I'm going to avoid it. But if you give them cooking ideas like, we love to throw this in a crock pot and drench it in barbecue sauce, and then we can have pulled pork sandwiches or nachos,
Hmm.
I'm getting hungry now talking about this.
Right?
That's what I love about working with meat. I'm always getting hungry. But then that can entice them to actually make that purchase. So
Hmm.
they can make the purchase online. In our system, they get free shipping if they place an order. We want them to choose a farmer in their region of the country. It's not always hyper local, but regional. They get free shipping if they place an order over $75 from that farmer. We actually help cover part of that shipping cost, but
Oh,
we
nice.
definitely recommend if you are setting up an online store, you need to determine a level that you can offer free shipping. It might be 150, it might be 250, but build that shipping in and offer that free shipping. Um, and then you know this, Kody, from taking the shipping course. We recommend that you only ship on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday so
Mhm.
that it does not get stuck in a warehouse. So if they order on a Wednesday and you ship on Mondays, they might have to wait a few days. But what we've found is that customers are generally very willing to leave a little wiggle room for farmers that they might not, they might expect Amazon or Walmart to deliver immediately to
Yeah.
them, but they understand that when they're ordering directly from farmers and it's a frozen product, it's a little bit of a different system.
Yeah. And we actually put that on our website. We only ship on these days. So,
Perfect. Yes. Yeah. And I think I encourage my farmers, if you've been doing farmers markets, think about all those questions that people ask you when they're face to face, or think about the questions that you've gotten via email if you have been selling online. And like the more places that you can put on your website, we only ship on Mondays, but you get free shipping over 150, the more places that you can put those online, the better. Because if a customer has to stop and ask you a question, it's going to slow them down from making a
hmm.
purchase. And they might find something else in the meantime. They might have something else come up in their budget in the meantime. You want them to make that purchase just right when they're thinking about it as soon as they're ready.
All right. I always take tons of notes.
I was going to say, I can see you writing. I hope that this is helpful.
It is, yeah. It also helps my assistant write my notes too.
Oh yeah.
Um, so you've been like just a wealth of information. Like I've absolutely loved this. What I ask all of my guests at the end of an episode is what does keep growing mean to you?
Ooh, this is really interesting because, like I said, we just celebrated 5 years of, next week is 5 years since we made our first dollar. I feel like a
Wow.
restaurant that like hangs the dollar. We listed turkeys for Thanksgiving, 5 years ago and had our first sale, I think November 14th. So I am definitely in this like reflecting mode about the last 5 years and like what the next 5 years looks like for me. And so keep growing for me personally. And I think you'll see Chop Local continue to evolve this way is that I love doing this educational piece. I love getting to know farmers. I think it's fascinating. Farmers across the country, like I've got one that's raising beef in on the New Mexico, Arizona, like 50 miles from the Mexico border. And it's
Wow.
so interesting to learn about her beef operation versus the ones that are right here in Iowa. And so I love
Yeah.
that. I want to be able to offer more one-on-one coaching. I want to be able to offer more of the educational services. But it's really right now, and I hope your listeners can take something away here too. It's for me and my family, it's really about like not necessarily adding more and saying yes to more, but really like narrowing in what is fitting my passions and my skill sets the most. And
Have
like,
you read 10x is better than 2x?
yes, exact. No, I haven't. I need to
Gotta
say
read
it
it.
again. What is it?
I think it's 10x is greater than 2x or
Okay,
something
okay.
along those lines.
Yeah. But so is it along those same like thought
Yes,
process of
it
like,
is
okay,
narrowing down what actually makes you money or
mm,
brings you some sort of benefit
yeah,
and focus and like not having a linear change in that, having like an exponential change in that.
yeah, yeah. I saw somebody posted, I think it was like on LinkedIn or something, that they were in a phase of life where they're starting to step back. And I was like thinking about it, and I'm like, I think I'm stepping like sideways maybe in order to go forward. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Oh,
Like
absolutely.
still stepping forward, but like maybe I need to take a step sideways and then move forward. So
I
that's,
kind of recently did that myself. So
yeah, yeah,
I got when we first started doing curriculum, we printed ourselves in the house. For the last 5 years, I've used a print company and they started to not meet my expectations anymore.
yeah,
So I bought top of the line, all new equipment to print myself, which is
nice.
now saving me money and making it where I can help other self-publishers. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's really cool. That's very cool. Um, I'm a little bit more in the like, I think I'm going to outsource a few things because they're not, like
Uh-huh.
it's not my path to growth to do certain things. But we've been supported by USDA grants in the past, which has helped us provide these educational resources.
Yeah.
And we're applying. I actually have an application due next week. We're applying for some more to continue to expand these things.
Good for
Um,
you.
in the meantime, though, everybody check out our YouTube channel. There's a wealth of information there, and as well as choplocaluniversity.com.
All right. So you have the YouTube channel with your webinars.
Yeah.
You have the podcast,
We
which
have the
is
podcast. It's called
Meet.
Meat Success, and that's
Okay.
meat. We love meat puns, obviously, at
Right.
Chop Local. So it's MEAT Success.
And you have
Mhm.
your university where you have courses,
Yep, we
and then
do.
the online platform that producers can sell through, right?
Yes, yep.
Awesome.
Yeah, and all of that, I mean, you'll find all of that information for producers is at choplocaluniversity.com. You can kind of see the different ways that and we also, I should mention, like, if you're like, gosh, Katie, email marketing sounds so great, but like, I don't have the tech skills or I don't know how to do it. And I don't know how to get my farmers market customers to sign up. Like, we offer done for you services too. So we can write emails for you. We can do coaching to help you with your specific, needs and platforms and where you're at. And that's where I said I want to do more of that coaching because I found that there's a ton of information online, but when you go to sit down and actually enact it, it can be really hard for
Yeah.
farmers. And I get that, right? We're all busy. We
Mhm.
have a million things going on and learning a new skill is tough. So
Absolutely. Well, I really appreciate you coming on today and helping educate everybody on what you do. And you guys definitely go check them out, see what they're doing, because even if it doesn't fit something that you are doing, you maybe have a homestead friend who either wants to sell their own or buy really quality meat offline. So, yeah, off of online platforms.
online. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I got it.
So,
No.
thank you so much, Katie, and I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thank you. And it was great to have a parenting conversation with with our similarities that we have there too. So I
Right, I
appreciate we were
agree.
able to throw that in. So
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for joining me today at the Homestead Education, and I hope that I have given you something to think about this week. To help others find me, please comment and leave a review on your favorite podcast player. You can also follow me on Facebook at the Homestead Education and Instagram at Homestead_education. Do you have questions that you would like answered or just want to say hi? Please email me at hello@thehomesteadeducation.com. Until next time, keep growing!